Hi everyone. I'm joined today by Seyed Mohammad Marandi, a professor from Tehran University and a former advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiation team. So your country has just been attacked by Israel in a surprise attack, and yes, everyone's following the situation as it develops. I was wondering if you have any information in terms of the extent of the damage which Israel has inflicted upon Iran.
Well, they began by bombing civilian targets. They bombed uh, my neighborhood and neighborhoods close to where we are, and uh, women and children were murdered, just like the clips that we see from Gaza or Lebanon. Uh, Children were thrown out of the windows because of the explosions, and uh, neighbors of targets, families of targets, they were massacred. And in the middle of the night, and they terrorized Iranians across the country wherever they carried out those attacks. But the Iranians were expecting an attack. I think they weren't expecting an attack on senior officials and senior military commanders, and that's why the assassination, some of them were successful. But they were expecting an attack. There has been damage, but I think it's a lot of it, what we are seeing on the internet is disinformation and misinformation. It's some of the clips are not real, some of them are AI, but some of them are uh, true and correct. The Iranians are going to retaliate shortly. They are regrouping the new commanders that have been put in place of those who were martyred. They're preparing the grounds for a counter assault. People are very angry because this was unprovoked and the civilians and women and children were targeted. And they're demanding the government and the armed forces to hit back very hard.
So, what will be the retaliation then? Again, there's a lot of we've spoken in the past as well. Will it be directly against Israel? Will it hit American targets in the region, do you think, or will there be any attacks on any energy infrastructure of a country who collaborated? What again? You don't sit with the plans of the Iranian leadership, but do you have some assumption or possible targets that could be chosen?
Well, even though the Americans are very much a part of this, and their installations in Turkey and the Emirates and Qatar and Bahrain, all of them are being used, and Kuwait are being used uh, to help the Israeli regime carry out attacks and also to help defend the regime. But I don't know if at the moment the Iranians have made any decision with regards to the Americans, but I have no doubt that they're going to hit the Israelis very hard. And I don't know when it will happen, but I would imagine it would be in the coming hours or uh, it would be it's getting close. As I said, because we have a new set of commanders, they are regrouping and preparing. Air defenses are apparently performing much better now, and but people are very angry. They went to the streets in different cities and in Tehran, and they were demanding that Iran hammer the Israeli regime hard. So I have no doubt that you're going to see major missile strike, maybe drone strike too, against Israel. And by the way, Iran hasn't carried out any attacks so far. There was talk that they fired 100 drones earlier today. That's not true. Maybe a few drones were fired by the Iraqi resistance, maybe not, but nothing from Iran. And it's very interesting that the West is supporting Israel uh, in its aggression against Iran. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency refuses to condemn Israel for attacking Iran's um, peaceful nuclear program. And those places that the Israelis are bombing are places where International Atomic Energy Agency investigators and experts, they visit them regularly. They know that they are all peaceful. They all know that Iran is working within the framework of international law. But the IAEA is dominated by the United States. If your viewers look back to the WikiLeaks documents, the previous head of this organization, who was Japanese, in one of those documents, he's told the Americans, I will be with you on, if you vote for me, if you choose me as the head of the organization, I will be with you on all the key issues. Right. So on the one hand, the former Japanese head of the International Atomic Energy Agency was in the American camp. That was, he accepted to be in their camp to get elected. And then in the documents that the Iranians have recently obtained, it's very clear that the current head of the organization is in the American and Israeli camp. And that this organization is completely compromised. It always was dominated by the West, like all international institutions created after the Second World War. And disproportionately, the West has power. If you look at the voting pattern, those who are opposing the resolution against Iran a couple of days ago, they're the global majority. India did not vote for it. China voted against it. Russia and many global South countries. And the bulk of those who supported the resolution were European countries, many of them tiny European countries, but since they're European, they have a place at the table.
What does this mean for future negotiation talks and the role of actual nuclear inspectors, such as the IAEA? Because if they're working as, handing over data and targets for the Israelis and the Americans, and also to what extent is it possible to negotiate with the Americans ever again if they're during negotiations, they are, actually planning an attack while the negotiations are still ongoing? I mean, this is going to be devastating for arms control, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not only is it pushing Iran towards changing its nuclear posture, which will probably happen if this continues, and there's nothing they can do about it. But
Well,
also, it makes negotiating with the United States virtually impossible because the United States is constant. It's not only in the past has it constantly shifted its position, but now it's becoming clear that the United States is a part of this aggression against Iran. How is Iran going to be able to negotiate with the United States when it's constantly shifting its position? And even after it has agreements such as the Gaza ceasefire, it rips them apart. And now with the aggression and with the murder of ordinary Iranians being due to U.S. support for the Israeli regime, it makes it virtually impossible. And again, Iranians are very angry. The Americans, the think tank land in the United States, they always say that the Iranians hate the so-called regime and it's about to collapse and one small push will finish the job. They've been saying this for decades, by the way. But they are fooling themselves. They speak to these like-minded Iranians who they fund or so-called Iran experts, and then these people invite them to their conferences, and they get their money from the government. So there's this circle, and everyone's well paid, everyone's well off. The narrative is the narrative that the Americans want to hear, but in the truth is that this is not going to work. Iranians want the government to hit hard because they've murdered kids, they've murdered women, they've attacked Iranian civilians, they've terrorized Iranian society. So this was a catastrophic mistake, and I have no doubt that the Iranians are going to go after the Israeli regime. They have a huge missile and drone capability, which is deep underground.
well, if we can circle back to the damages to Iran, I've heard reports that there are nuclear leaks from a nuclear reactor. Is this confirmed, or I'm just wondering the extent of the damages here, and if this is
I
now.
don't know how. Yeah, well, Iran has different installations, and some of them are very deep underground, which the Americans and the Israelis could never touch. And some of them are more vulnerable. This particular site that you're talking about is, I think, less heavily protected. But as far as I know, so far it's not serious, but the Israelis are trying to create a radioactive leak. That's the intention, and the West supports it. This is, I mean, after Gaza, everything is now believable. But I also experienced this in the 1980s when the West gave Saddam Hussein chemical weapons to use against people like me. I survived, others didn't. So for the West, everything is believable. If the Israelis can create nuclear contamination in Iran, I guess that's fine for the Europeans and the Americans. They want to support this ethno-supremacist regime, no matter what it does, whether it's genocide in Gaza, whether it's genocidal attacks in Lebanon, whether it's attacks on Iran, whether it's attacks on the nuclear program, they'll support it.
What is the possibility of this well, not just escalating, this obviously going to escalate in a big way, but that the conflict will widen out, that is to pull in other players in the region, not just the region, but in the globe. This is not, well, not call it a minor scuffle as happened a few months back, but this is, a massive attack on Iran and its yeah, nuclear power plants. This is quite, there's no going back after this. So, do you see any possibility of this producing a wider war?
War is something that once it begins, it's very difficult to contain it. And if the United States makes any foolish decision, I think that the Iranians will hit them very hard. And hitting the Americans is much easier than hitting the Israelis. The Iranians have tens of thousands of missiles that can strike Israel, and tens of thousands of drones, if not hundreds of thousands. But the Iranians have countless missiles and drones that can hit anywhere in the Persian Gulf. It's much easier. They're very close. Iran has huge access. The Persian Gulf is not very wide, and Iran has underground bases everywhere. And all of these regimes, these family dictatorships, they are very vulnerable and they're glass palaces. So the US has bases in all these countries. And if something happens, these countries, Iranians, will consider them to be complicit. So that's a very, very dangerous situation. Trump, if he's sane, he'd refrain from doing this, even though he's already involved. But um, this would, I think, bring down the global. I have no doubt that if he does this, this will bring down the global economy in a way which we've not, it would be far worse than even 1929, the Great Depression.
You say if it's involved, do you see it any chance that the US is not involved? I see Marco Rubio going out with statements that Israel did this all by itself. But if you look at Trump's tweets, thrown out to the Iranians, it doesn't get closer to an admission, I guess. So, but still, I take your point. The U.S. by claiming this, I don't think there's much plausible deniability, but by claiming to stand on the outside and still be a mediator or a negotiator, they play the same game with the Russians, by the way. Um, then at least they're not actively participating. But do you see, besides the culpability now or hidden participation, do you see a chance of the Americans getting pulled into this war in a
Without
direct
a
way?
doubt, the Americans, yeah, without a doubt, the Americans are deeply involved right now. Without the Americans, this cannot happen. That's for sure. But the point that I was making was, of course, direct involvement, where the Americans themselves start trying to strike Iranian positions. And that is, for Iran, hitting back would be far easier than striking all the way to Israel because it's because of the distance. You have a it's much easier to destroy the assets in the Persian Gulf region and much cheaper and it would be much more swift. So again, the Americans are involved. The Iranians will probably look to punish the Americans in one way or another as it stands. But what I meant was direct involvement. If they themselves started trying to strike Iran, then I think things would change very dramatically, very quickly, and the whole world will feel it.
I spoke earlier to Scott Ritter, which you know, and he argued that it looked as if more or less all the Iranian air defense systems had been taken out. Is this? I mean, everyone is scrambling for news and information. And as you said, there's a lot of disinformation going out as well. So, everyone can get information mistaken. But do you sit with the same information?
Iran produces its own air defenses, and it has large numbers of air defense uh, facilities. And there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation going around. I do not agree with the assessment that Iran does not have air defenses. Uh, and from what we're hearing right now, during the last few hours, Iranian air defenses are now performing much better. But we'll see. But I think the most important thing is Iran's offensive capabilities. And I think they will be deployed in the near future.
Just for a final question, besides Israel targeting Iran's military leadership, and nuclear reactors and simulating the missile defense systems, have they gone for other targets? Uh, have they been able to get any understorage missile depots or um,
No, no. None of the depots, none of the underground bases are accessible to the Israelis at all. They've murdered a number of, I think, six nuclear scientists. Two or three of them were managers. One of them I know personally. He's the president of a university, but he was the president of a university before being murdered. But the Israelis have not been able to touch any of Iran's hundreds of underground bases.
okay. Oh, sorry, just one last final question. Are the attacks ongoing now as you're there in Tehran? Or are they in the middle of a wave or what is happening as we speak?
There was a wave a short time ago in Tehran. Tehran is a huge city, so while it was happening, I couldn't hear it. But then I saw online that in another part of Tehran, they were firing anti-aircraft defenses, and apparently they had success. But from here, I couldn't hear it. I heard last night. I heard an explosion earlier today, although I don't know if it was air defense or if they hit a target. But Tehran is huge.
Well, again, thank you for your time and yeah, stay safe.
Thank you for having me, Glenn.